Hi and welcome to Elvenhome and to the April update, where I take a look at various things that I've been doing around the layout, including two kits that I enjoyed doing. They were quite demanding, but I think look really good on the layout, and also a happy accident, which I'll explain a bit later on. So I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll speak to you again in just a moment. Well, as I said in the opening, I was going to start with the Churchyard. Paul McSee, in response to my last video, was pleased to see the work that I was doing on the Vicar's garden, but asked whether he'd missed a video talking about the development of the Churchyard. He hadn't. I had recorded a section after I worked on the Churchyard, beyond grassing it and putting the path in. But I forgot to put it in the last video, and rather than use that again, given that things have moved on since that was recorded, I'll talk about the Churchyard now. As you can see, it now has graves and some trees, and we'll go in a bit closer so you can get a look at the graves. The graves are a mixture between, you can see some, that's a good mixture there we go. I'll just make sure it gets into focus. There we go. That's a mixture. Some of those are from kits from PD Models, the Obelisk and the Celtic Cross, obviously so. And I think one or more, no, I think all the others actually, are ones that I made by hand from stripped styrene, which was basically just shaping them to give me a vaguely gravestone-y size and shape, and I'll put up here a picture of them being painted. I made about 70 or 80 of different sizes. You can see behind, right up in the top corner, one of the very small ones, because obviously the monumental mason will make a gravestone as big or little as you want. In the centre of the picture now, those are three from the PD kits. But then you come round to here, and again you can see a very small gravestone. All of those gravestones, I think, are ones that I've made by hand, except for one or two of the rounder ones that are coming up at the top of the shop now. I'd be interested actually in people's views. There's about 100 gravestones in that cemetery. But they're very well spaced out, and it could probably accept another 100. So I'd be interested in your views of whether I should leave well alone, or perhaps try and get a few more gravestones in there, because I think it does look a bit spaced out. The only thing that makes my heart sink is the thought of cutting and shaping another 100 gravestones. But never mind, perhaps a few more PD kits will be the answer. In addition, I had my first go at making trees out of Seafoam. This is the Gauge Master Seafoam kit, which I bought at Model Rail Scotland. There's plenty of videos. Dave Class 47 is worth watching, which I just copied essentially, which is once you take the Seafoam out, you get the thing that looks the best shaped tree that you like. I painted it with a brown acrylic paint from a spray can, and then used the fixative that's used for mounting paper onto boards by artists. Sprayed the trees and then dropped over some Gauge Master leaf. I think I used the mid-green first, and then after that another quick spray, and put some light green so that you get a variegation in colour, and finally some hairspray. I'm not sure I've got a strong enough hold actually in my hairspray, but never mind, we shall have to see. And so there are the three trees that you can see above the tunnel portal. One there, which I must confess is the one that I like the most. It looks most tree-like to me. And then three little trees that line the path into the church. They were, I mean, it really is, if you just I'll put up here a link to Dave 47 making his trees, which is the one that I used. It is really quite interesting how you just follow what they do, and lo, you have trees. And I've got a box down here which have given me many more trees. Being N-gauge, you can get quite a lot out of the box, more I think than you would do if it was a 00 gauge model. But the churchyard is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much finished now, other than that question of have I got enough gravestones in there. And I'm swithering on that because I quite like it as it is, so I may just leave it alone and we'll wait and see. Okie dokie. So the next thing to look at up here is just the latest on the vicarage and the garden. I'm not going to do too much because the next video will talk about the development of the garden. As you can see, there is some foam board in there because I want to raise up the garden, partly to provide different levels. It's very flat at the moment, this board, and it'd be nice to have some different levels there, but also for another reason. What that reason is, I'm not going to tell you, because you'll see in the next video, I hope. And as you can see, there are some steps now leading up to the raised area, and once again, those are just the grey board from Metcalf kits, cut obviously to different lengths and widths to create yourself a flight of stairs, and then painted with some artist's acrylics, just mixed up kind of stony looking colour. But as I said, there'll be more on the garden in the next video, which will be in a fortnight's time, because I'm busy building various things. Those of you that are on the Engage Facebook page, the Engage Forum Facebook page, will have seen some of the things that I'm doing. So that just wraps up the update for the top section. There's nothing else that I need to speak to you about there. The next thing is to show you something that was meant to have originally been up here, but I rejected in favour of the Palisade Fencing, which you saw in the last update, but which has worked out rather nicely in another part of the layout. So I'll be back in just a moment. When I was building the upper level, my original intention was to have had a stone wall coming from the station. If I move up to the station, let's just take you up there. So a stone wall that would have come out from the station, probably at a right angle. Well, indeed it was at a right angle. And then from then I was going to have a low wall on which I was going to mount some iron railings, which I got from Scale Model Scenery. And I'll put up here a picture of the completed run of railings and the half-built wall. The only problem with that was that it looked very square. Everything was really, really square. And indeed, the wall, I think, was much too high, and it was all very heavy. I think that's what you'll see from the picture. So I rejected that. And was scratching my head what to do. Excuse me. And as you see, the Palisade Fencing went in. And quite by chance, the wall and iron railing fencing that I'd built, I just put down here solely for the purpose of putting it out the way somewhere. And then took a look at what it does. What I'd originally intended to put here, which you may remember from some videos ago, was a Scale Model Scenery kit of a Victorian brick wall, a red brick wall, which would be about 6 or 7 foot high. Probably about the same height as this, maybe a little bit lower. But this, I think, is so much better. It doesn't block the houses as much and gives a nice view across the layout, and also wouldn't be quite so as imposing if you were living in the houses. The fencing, as I said, is a Scale Model Scenery kit, and I'll just stop here for a moment and then bring in so you can see a piece that's not yet put into the into the wall. Okay, well, the wall and the fencing, as I said, the fencing is from a Scale Models scenery kit. Here's one of the fencing pieces. You get 4 of these in the kit. They come, obviously they're laser cut wood, so that's been painted with a gloss black to give that kind of effect you get from iron railings that have fairly recently been painted. And obviously you can drill holes into whatever you want to set these down into them. And that's very much what has been done there. The wall is made up of a beam, a hollow beam, which has got some Scale Model scenery brick paper. I can't remember which one it is, but I'll try and put a link in at this point. Which, on top of which, then I just put some channel in the time-honoured fashion. Which, as you can see, I've started scoring using a junior hacksaw, divisions that will allow that to look like slabs on top of the wall, and that will then be painted as the finished one is. That's just artist acrylics again. I mixed up that colour. At one end of the wall, I had to touch it up and mix up another batch, and it's a bit more orange than the peachier colour that you can see in front of you, which I only noticed after I'd finished everything and stuck it all together. So I think what I'm going to do is get a couple of figures that are painters at that end, working their way along, just to hide that out. And I'm going to have to mix, obviously, much more of that colour, but I have a fair idea of how I mixed it, so that should be okay. Fitting the fencing in and drilling the holes I found really quite tricky. Although the precise size hole is quite a small one, working along a great length like that, the margin of error, or the cumulative error that gets, you can very easily find yourself out. So I just did bigger holes until I could slot everything in, and butted the fences obviously up to each other to provide a continuous run, which I think it does quite well, because they're all sections exactly the same. At one end, I think, again, this was custom built of a particular length for the higher level, and the other levels will now go in. And the intention is to take it to, if I come out a little bit, up to about there somewhere. I'm not yet clear in my mind how far beyond the edge of Bagshot Terrace that this is going to be, but we'll wait and see. Because I haven't quite made up my mind what's at the end there. Obviously there's the station area, and there's going to be something else there which is for later in the year, but it's a bit empty, so something will be there, but I'm not entirely sure what, but we'll sort that out later. And at the other end, it is my intention to take the fencing, if I just come round, take the fencing all the way up here, certainly up to the tunnel portal. What goes along there, I'm not sure. I think that may be back to the wooden fencing of a more railway nature, to delineate the railway from the roadway, which will be the other side. So that's very much talking about that section. And then I think the final thing that I have to speak about is a couple of kits which I got from Modulux Models, which I'm very pleased with, and I'll come on to those in just a moment. This is the first of the models that I got from Modelux Models. I think he's got quite a big backlog of kits from what I can gather. It took a little while for mine to arrive, and I did have to chase a couple of times, but I got responses both times that I inquired when mine would be arriving. And the kit takes a bit of making. You do have to persevere and just have faith. The actual outside bit is fairly straightforward, and as the instructions tell you, it's quite wonky until you start putting start putting the lattice pieces that go between each of the uprights, and as they start going in, the whole thing starts coming together. And the thing I think that I needed most nerve with was the holder itself, which is obviously a smaller holder inside a deeper one. If I go in close enough, you'll be able to see that there are two holders there. Those are made up of small, I'll come out so this will focus. Those are made up of quite small pieces. That's from the bottom. The reason I have some spares is that as you build the base around a 17-sided ring, obviously depending on how you fit each piece together will depend on the space that's left when you come to put the last piece in. And therefore he gives you a number of different widths of pieces, so that with the last one you put the one that fits best. And then the upper holder is built in exactly the same way, and that's one of the pieces, if I show you here, for building the upper holder. The upper holder fits inside the lower one, and you build the roof on top as well. I'm really pleased with it. I have to say I'm really pleased with it. I think it goes really well in that industrial estate just by the boiler house. It makes sense to have a gas holder to supply gas for the properties. And just to the right of the boiler house you can see the second kit, which is a water tower. That was a little bit easier to build, but still requires concentration. But that looks fabulous, and that will find its place somewhere in the motive power depot without any question at all. So I'm really pleased with those two things, and that's helped at that end. And the final thing to mention was me being a cheapskate. Well, not entirely a cheapskate. Some of you who may watch Cheeky Tech's videos will have seen that Amazon were doing these controllers for something ridiculous, about £92 I think. I think they're about 140 to buy from Gagemaster. I think Hattons do them at something like 110. I may be doing them down there. They may do them a bit less than that. So I got a second one because I've discovered that once you start running trains and you want to do something in the goods yard with trains, you can guarantee that's the moment you need to switch back to the ones that are on the circuit and do something with them. The only problem is that once you've got two of these things, if you're not very careful, you can't be sure which of the two you're dealing with. And I wanted somewhere which I could, in any event, store them. Now there are caddies and all sorts of things that I've seen people use. But it suddenly dawned on me that actually the depth of these things reminded me sort of vaguely of the depth of cup hooks. That is, the hooks on which you hang cups when you have a board in the kitchen. And so I went to, I don't know if you can see if we can show you there, you can see the two cup hooks there. I went to B&Q and spent £2.04 and got 4 cup hooks. And they're absolutely perfect. You just set them just the right width to hold the caddy, and there you go. That's £2.04, and the other one is at the other end. And the beauty of that is now, one, I can actually control them from there if needs be. If I'm just controlling speed, I don't actually need to lift them out. But number 1 is on this side, number 2 is on the other side, and I'm not picking the wrong one up to control the trains. So that works really well. On that cheapskating note is the end of this month's update. I hope you've enjoyed the update. As I said, I'll be putting another video up in a fortnight's time, which will be bringing you up to date on the garden for the vicarage. There's various things that I've been building. I know precisely what I'm going to do up there. And the question over the next fortnight is to actually get ahead and do that. Please, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe. It'd be great to have you along. If you hit the bell notification against the subscribe button, you'll get an email telling you when I've posted something up. Please share the video if you feel free to do that. And do please let me have your comments, because I really enjoy getting the comments and responding to them. And people have given me so many ideas that I'm using, or have just made me think again about some things that they're invaluable as a kind of sounding board on whether what I'm doing makes any sense. And do please remember the question that I asked, and let me have your comments on whether I need more gravestones. It seems a shame to kill off more of the inhabitants of Elvenhome, but I fear I probably do. So that's about it for this update, and I'll see you again in a fortnight's time. Bye bye.